Hello, I'm Jeff Porcaro and I'm here to make my great-grandma Porcaro's famous biscotti recipe. So today I've gone ahead and kind of measured everything out. We're going to take 3/4 of a cup of granulated sugar and we're going to mix that with a pinch of salt, which I've just got a little pinch here, and this is kosher salt, so it's a little bit more coarse than normal, and 1/3 cup of butter. So we're going to go ahead and dump the sugar, salt, and butter together into the bowl, and then we're going to kind of mash that in until we get the butter. And normally, I've had this butter in here for a while, but you want it to be soft, kind of room temperature. And this is definitely a recipe that you're going to get a little bit of messy with your hands. So we'll go ahead and see if I can get this butter to mix with the sugar. You can make this kind of like a cake or anything else there, where you kind of mix the butter and sugar and salt together first. And as soon as we get a little bit of a mix here, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to kind of mix in the flour, and we will mix in the almonds as well as the nutmeg and baking powder. So basically, the almond biscotti, the biscotti cookie was one that was made back in medieval times, and basically it was made as more like a bread, and biscotti means twice baked, and so it's basically you're going to be baking this twice, and they used to make it in medieval times, and because it's twice baked, it's quite dry, and when you get rid of all the moisture in that bread or cookie, as us in America would call it, when you get that moisture in there or out of it, it lasts longer. So they would be able to use them on long trips, or a lot of the army would use them because it's energy, it's food, but it's in a form that can stay dry and preserved. So now we've got most of the butter and sugar kind of broken down here, and like I said, we're going to get most of that to where it's going to get a little further. I also, just so you know, I use an app called Paprika. The Paprika app is a great app that helps me with my recipes that I do. So now we are going to mix 2.5 cups of flour, and in here is 1 1/2 teaspoons of baking powder. And so we're going to go ahead and just dump the flour and that in. Prior to here, I just used a chopper like this chopper here. It's a device that you can just push down and chop, and it will chop your almonds. And you want to break the almonds into a 2/3 and a 1/3. 1/3 of the almonds, you want to do this more fine ground chop that you're going to put into the flour, and then you're going to have a more coarse chop that we're going to put in with the flour as well. And so we've got our 4 ounces of almonds, 2.5 cups of flour, 1/8 of a teaspoon of nutmeg that we'll put in just to give it a little bit of flavoring there. And then again, we said there was the baking powder that was mixed in with the flour. So now, as we go about mixing this, again, we're going to try to mix in as much of this as we can with that sugar and butter. And you'll see it's going to be super dry and start to kind of form. Now, when we add our wet mixture, that's when you're going to get the rest of this forming, and then we're going to kind of go from just being a mix here of all this drier stuff to using our hands. We're going to get in there and mess with it. So next thing that we're going to do is we're going to add our wet liquids. We have 2 large eggs here. I've gone ahead and mixed or broke those down and mixed them up. We have 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract with 1/8 teaspoon of almond extract. So we're going to go ahead and mix that in. And we do want every bit of this moisture because this is going to be a drier dough that needs to be mixed really well. So we're going to go ahead and start mixing it with the spoon until it gets kind of started, and then we're going to move to our hands. And once we get this mixed, you want it'll feel really dry and feel like you're not going anywhere, but as you keep working with it, it keeps getting more moist. This is a lot like if you've ever made ravioli dough, a very similar concept where the dough itself feels like you're never going to get to a state where it's actually usable. So we're going to go ahead, and now that I've got this going, we're going to just start kneading this together with our hands. And you'll see it start to take shape, start to get a little sticky, and starting to bring that moisture in. First time I made this, you feel like you're tempted to put some moisture in there, and I found that the more consistent the dough and moisture is, the better the cookies are. They don't crumble as much when you are slicing them after they've been cooked. And so that's something. Actually, one thing I'm going to do before I get too far in here is you can use a product. It's called Anise Seeds. Not sure the Anise Seeds smell to me a little bit like licorice or something, but you can actually do some anise seeds to flavor. So I'm going to put a few shakes in here. We're going to mix it up a little, and then I'm going to put a few more shakes just to give it kind of that flavoring. Now, some people will also use whole almonds. Some people will use little candied fruit and other stuff. This recipe here is just a traditional family simple recipe. Like I said, it had most of the ingredients. Probably the most expensive or hardest part for the ingredients is getting the almonds. And again, it's a 4-ounce bag of almonds, so it's actually one of the smallest. And you'll see here now our dough is starting to form, and you're able to get it to go into balls. So we're just going to keep kneading this. The recipe says to knead it for 2 minutes. I found I have to knead it a little bit longer than 2 minutes to get it all to stick together, and so that you get a good biscotti that's not going to fall apart when you are building it up. And let's see if we can get this here. So we're just going to keep kneading this and rolling it and kneading it. Again, you'll see it gets more and more like a dough. I've seen some of the biscotti recipes on the internet. The dough is actually almost runny. And like I said, this is going to be more like a ravioli dough that's just got the moisture. We're going to see if we can get the rest of this here. Sorry about. So we'll keep kneading it. And I've read a couple people will actually take the dough, wrap it in saran wrap, put it in the into the fridge for about a half hour just to cool it and let it absorb more of the moisture, so that moisture goes all the way through. But as you see here, we've got a nice good dough. If you tear it open, you'll see it's still a little flaky inside. So we're just going to work it just a little bit longer so that we don't have breakage when you go to cut it. And I've messed around with a couple different shapes and stuff, and we'll see how this goes. But the shapes that I've found cut best are going to be the kind of a odd shaped loaf. So let's go ahead. We're going to pull out a greased pan. We have put the oven on 325, and now you're just going to break the you're going to break this into 4 pieces, the dough. So this is what we're going to do. We'll mess with 2 of them right now, and then we'll get to the others here in just a minute. But what I've done is you can kind of roll them out. And what I've found is all the recipes say to make a log of the dough. But it seems like if I kind of form that log to be probably 2 to 3 inches, and then we flatten it out a little bit. Remember that when we make these, we are going to be cutting those, so you want it to be pretty uniform across, uniform width and girth and stuff. And as it cooks in the oven, it is going to flatten a little bit as well. So, you know, that's a typical size or way that you can do it. The first ones I made were, you know, I did the 1 inch or 1/2 inch like a log, and they turned out okay. But when you go to cut them, they tended to break down a little bit and crumble when you'd cut. And so again, we're kind of trying to make it so that when the cookies are cut, you have kind of a sliced cookie that you're going to have. So go ahead, and there's another one. Again, I do these a little bit thick and big. We're going to break this next set of dough here in half. And these are going to be a little bit bigger than the first ones I made. You can roll them if you want, like this. As long as the dough is starting to adhere, they won't break open. But there's another one, pretty quick. And again, these cookies are going to be just a little bit thicker so that as you slice them, they'll have a little bit of size to it. We are putting this on a greased pan. I just took a little bit of the butter that I use to cook in these, and I took that butter and basically rubbed it on the pan. So again, here we've got our little bit of a log. Give it a little bit of width. And then the last thing we're going to do here is I've taken some egg whites and I've whipped those egg whites up. Probably give it just a little bit more whip here, and then you're just going to paint the egg whites onto the biscotti dough. And so we're painting the egg whites on the biscotti dough. And then the last part here is we're going to put them into an oven. Again, mine's at 325. The recipe originally called for 350, and I found that it actually was almost burning the bottoms, and the tops were not the way I wanted them. So I adjusted the recipe a little bit, and we'll see how it goes. But again, you just paint on the egg whites. And now we will take these and we'll stick them in the oven, and we will let them go for about 30 to 35 minutes. So let me set a timer. We'll go ahead and set it for 30. Hang on, timer, 3000, and start. And we go ahead and let those run. And then we will come back here in about 30 minutes, check out the oven, see how it came out. But again, this is my great grandma Porcaro's biscotti recipe. Okay, so we've had those in a 325 oven. I mistakenly said 30 minutes. It's actually 25 minutes for the first bake, and then it's 7 minutes each side for the second bake. So we're going to go ahead. Those are almost done now. About 10 seconds left. We're going to pull those out of the oven. We're going to let them cool, and as we let them cool, we will then slice them, and then we'll put them back on the tray. Once they're on the tray, they'll be set flat, and they'll bake 7 minutes on one side, 7 on the other. So let's go ahead and pull these out. You can see they've baked a little bit, starting to get a little golden brown, nice and crusty on the outside. So this is where we can take them. You're going to let them cool. So once we take them off, you put them, I just put them on a cooling rack. And you'll see that if you leave them in too long, let's see if we can show you the underside of this without having the whole thing. See how that underside is nice and toasty? They can actually get burned on the bottom, and so we want to make sure that they don't burn, and so that they're nicely cooked. So now, like I said, we're going to let these cool. We'll then take them. We're going to put them on a cutting board, and when we get the cutting board, we will cut those in kind of a 45-degree angle to get some surface area on them. And then we're going to lay those out on the cookie sheet again. We'll cook them 7 minutes on each side. So we'll show you that when these cool. We've let them cool a little bit. There's still just a little bit of warmth to the touch, but I decided to just get in and get going on these so that we can move on. So I've already pre-sliced 3 of the loaves, but we'll go ahead and kind of show you what it looks like when you're slicing. So if you come in, I use a serrated actual bread knife. which tends to work pretty well. I know some people say using an actual straight edge knife worked better, because sometimes you get where a piece just kind of gets grabbed and chunks off. So I don't push hard when I'm cutting. I try to keep it nice and light. Usually about a 1/2 inch wide on the cookies or the slices. You know, it's kind of whatever thickness you want. You want to keep enough thickness though to keep the cookie together. Because you have little pieces of almond and some of the dough in here, it'll break up a little bit. So you'll get some crumbs and stuff. Best part about that is you get to eat those. You get to have those for tasters. And then you'll just pull off these little flat pieces. And this is where we're going to actually make it a biscotti by doing the twice bake. We're going to go ahead and cook these again for 7 minutes on each side, so that they can start to get hard. If you have a piece like this, you can try to cut it off so that you have a piece, or you can go ahead and just save that and eat that. I usually end up eating and saving all the crumbs from those. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to put this in the oven, and we are going to cook those on that side for 7 minutes. Then we'll go ahead and cook for another 7 minutes on the other side. And when those come out, we'll show you the final product. Okay, we're just about ready for that final beep of the timer. When the timer goes off, we will go ahead and pull out. Again, they've been on each side. I went ahead and gave them just a little bit more time on the flip side, just to get them a little more golden brown. It's up to you how long or how brown you want them to be. You can see here we have all of our cookies. They're pretty hard now. And we'll just go ahead, and as you can see, they're just a nice cookie starting to get a little golden brown on them. So we can go ahead now and let these cool on the cooling rack. And then when they get a little bit cool, we will go ahead and plate them. Again, these cookies, some people like them when they're a little bit warm. Some people like them to be nice and cold and hard and crispy. Some people let them get so hard they break a tooth, but we're not into that. So these are a pretty good mix between the a little bit of soft on the inside, but mostly like a hard cookie. These go really well with hot chocolate. Some people will get Nutella and dip them in Nutella. Some people will do it in chocolate. So, whatever you like, that's definitely what you should go for. Again, you can save the crumbs and eat those or set those aside. And then in this case, we're just going to go ahead and take a few of these and throw them on a nice plate. So you can hear that they're nice and hard cookie. And there we go with our biscotti that we cooked. Again, this is Great Grandma Porcaro's recipe. Very similar recipes out there on the internet as well, but this one's pretty simple. And again, good double baked cookies. Let those cool, and even Tawny likes them better the second day when they've had time to kind of set and get a little bit harder. My neighbor loves them just about where they're at right now, where they're still a little bit warm, and that's it. So that's the almond biscotti cookie recipe from Great Grandma Porcaro. Thank you for following along today, and hopefully you'll get a chance to make it. The recipe will be in the comments or in the description of the video, and enjoy.